And there I was the girl from Suits.
This One's Wife. The Archie Double. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. It is fair to say that the burning question that remains for many people in relation to this one's wife relates to her pregnancies and her children. There are some who believe that she was pregnant and she gave birth to Archie and Lilibet. There are many people that believe that she didn't give birth to the children, but they do exist, and they came about as a consequence of surrogates. There are others who don't believe that she was pregnant and don't believe the children exist, and that instead doubles, actors, are in fact used. There are those who point to the suggestion that this one's wife had a hysterectomy when she was aged 28 and therefore has not been able to have children. People also point to many anomalies in relation to the circumstances of the birth, suspicious activity which remains unanswered. There are a lot of people who subscribe to the moon bump view, that they have looked at the pictures and the video footage in relation to this one's wife, and they firmly believe that she was not pregnant and that she used what has been commonly called a moon bump, that the position of this bump changed, that she was able to do certain things while supposedly pregnant that a heavily pregnant woman just could not do, that the moon bump moved position, that its shape altered, that it at one point collapsed, that it dropped. There's certainly photographic evidence which calls into question whether a moon bump was used or not. I naturally have looked at the position with regard to the question of her narcissism. And whilst you can look at the various evidence that exists that's been put forward by a variety of commentators as to whether you think she was pregnant or not, or whether surrogates have been used, or whether the children exist at all, I looked at it within the context of, is this something that a narcissist might do? And if so, how likely? And I've explained in detail the way that a narcissist would act with regard to the issue of potentially inventing the children or the prospect of having them through a surrogate. I've also explained why it is the case that should the children exist, that they're rarely seen, which essentially revolves around the fact that this one's wife, not being maternal, narcissists aren't, but also the fact that she would not want to be upstaged by her children. Thus, they are not seen with her very often. There's occasional pieces of staged footage that are released to demonstrate her as being a doting mother, but in any other circumstance where there's a public event, the children aren't seen. There are those that think, well, they're not seen because they don't exist. I think it's more likely that they do exist, but they're not utilised by her because she doesn't want to be upstaged by them. And it might be that they arose as a consequence of a surrogate. But the fact is that she doesn't want to be seen with them because she can't necessarily control them particularly well. And she doesn't want people talking about her children. She wants them talking about her because she's the main draw. She tolerates being seen with Harry because her narcissism recognises that people still want to have an involvement with him, and that through him is why she gets invited to things also, and that why she has some degree of prominence nevertheless. Thus, he serves a useful purpose for her. Thus, he is tolerated in that respect with regard to public appearances. As you know, he suffers a sustained devaluation behind closed doors. But with regard to the children, she would regard them as upstaging her, hence why you don't see them. There are those that suggest, for instance, with regard to Archie, that he was born from a surrogate and that he actually lives with the surrogate, and thus he exists, but you don't see him You hardly ever see any pictures of him. He's not really spoken about in a way which seems natural because he doesn't actually live with Harry and this one's wife. Nevertheless, there's often been suggested that a double has been utilised for Archie, and there was considerable speculation surrounding a CNN reporter who was friends with this one's wife and was said to have used her child for a video clip that was broadcast during the interview with Oprah Winfrey. The lady in question is called Bryn Gingras, and she has a son called Gavin. And it was suggested that Gavin Gingras was actually used as Archie. Again, that's a matter for you to determine whether you think that is something that happened. The point is, there is the potential for a narcissist to utilise somebody else's child to pass that child off as her own. But now, there is a further suggestion that there is actually another child that appears as Archie, that is in fact utilised as Archie, that the similarity between the two is such because that is the actual child, and that Archie has in effect a double, but not quite accurately that, because Archie doesn't really exist, and in fact he is another child that is passed off as Archie. Again, I'll leave it up to you to make a determination as to what you think, but it is entirely within the bounds of what a narcissist might do, passing off somebody else's child as their own in order to make themselves look good and to manage their own facade. Remember, the narcissist is self-absorbed, and irrespective of the fact that it would result in speculation, in order to assert control in that moment by appearing to be a good mother, to have a child, and also to cement a hold over particular assets, then a narcissist may well go to the extreme lengths of, in effect, borrowing somebody else's child and passing them off as their own to the outside world. I'm now going to present to you the photograph that has been recently doing the rounds in relation to who this Archie double might be. There on your screen you can see a picture of Archie being held by Prince Harry next to this one's wife. That picture appeared on a Christmas card a couple of years ago. The other picture shows August, who is the child of Princess Eugenie. And the suggestion has been made in various circles that in actual fact that is the same child, that there isn't an Archie, that it's August who appears. And there is a passing resemblance between the two children, that much can be seen. As always, I'll leave it up to you to whether you determine if you believe that Archie doesn't exist and in actual fact it's Eugenie's child that has been passed off as Archie instead, and to what end. Bear in mind, of course, the complications that arise with regard to keeping such a matter quiet and having the buy-in of all of the parties. It would seem far easier, of course, to actually have a child, even if it's born of a surrogate. But once again, what this does highlight, whether you accept or don't accept that there is a child called Archie, and whether you accept or don't accept that this one's wife carried him, this continued speculation simply will not go away. That there are many people who do not believe that she was pregnant, do not believe that she gave birth to the children, and do not even actually believe that the children exist. Given the paucity of sightings of them, the instances where it's claimed that they made a visit, but there's eyewitness accounts stating that no children actually did. And, of course, the repeated lies and revisions of history that this one's wife engages in just causes more people to believe, well, in actual fact, that might be just the case, that there is no Archie, that in effect he has a double who is actually him, and it is August. What are your thoughts about the matter? Do you believe that Archie exists? Do you believe that he does, but he came from a surrogate? Or do you believe that he does and this one's wife did actually give birth to him? What you will notice is that there is this continued speculation. And once again, this continued speculation has been brought on to this one's wife by her own conduct. It's a combination of the fact that she's not liked because of her behaviour, and it's a combination of the anomalies that have surrounded the births of both Archie and Lilibet, which could be entirely innocent. But because of the dubious and sketchy behaviours of this one's wife, it naturally causes people to be sceptical of her conduct and behaviours, and has given rise to all of this significant speculation with regard to the issue of whether she was actually pregnant or not. There are those that denounce those that query the pregnancy, but it has to be said, there are many questions which are supported by evidence, which raise the legitimacy of people asking, but did that really happen? As I've mentioned before, the photographs in relation to the differing shape and size and location of her pregnancy bump, footage that has emerged, questions that remain to be asked. But what it does demonstrate very clearly is that people remain sceptical as to the motives and behaviours of this one's wife, and that all stems from her behaviour. If she hadn't engaged in the smearing and the lying and the revisions of history, people would be more accepting of these anomalies. They might not even have looked twice at them. But because of the way that she has behaved in the pursuit of the prime aims in the moment, the collateral consequences that have arisen from that means that everything that she does is subject to scrutiny and question, and is put under the forensic microscope by thousands, if not millions, of individuals who scrutinise her behaviour, not because they hate her because of her colour or that she's female, but because they simply think she's not someone to be believed, that she's always on the grift in some shape or form. Thus, the latest suggestion is that Archie might not be Archie. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section. I'm HG Tudor. Thank you for listening.